Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a little exercise in cultural memory.
Okay, I'm ready.
If I say a name, I want you to just think about the very first image that pops into your head.
Got it.
The name is Elizabeth Smart.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, that is evocative.
Right, it just hits you.
Immediately. I'm back in 2002. I see the blue ribbons tied around trees. I see the press conferences with her father, Ed Smart, looking absolutely devastated.
Yeah.
I feel that very specific early 2000s anxiety about stranger danger. It's a name that is practically synonymous with the concept of a missing child.
It is. It's a cultural touchstone. If you were conscious in 2002, that story is like burned into your hard drive. But here's the problem. And honestly, it's the reason I really wanted to pull this specific stack of sources today. For, 99% of the public, the story ends in March 2003.
Right. She's found.
She gets found, the credits roll. We all feel this huge sense of relief, and then we change the channel.
Which is a tragedy in itself, isn't it? Because the true crime part of Elizabeth Smart's life, as horrific as it was, is arguably the least interesting thing about the woman she became.
I would go a step further.
Go on.
I'd say if you only know the abduction story, you don't actually know Elizabeth Smart at all. You know a caricature. You know a victim.
A two-dimensional figure.
Exactly. But the sources we have today, her biography, her speeches, her legislative work, even her film production credits, they paint this picture of someone who didn't just survive trauma, but who fundamentally deconstructed it.
I really like that framing, deconstruction.
Yeah.
Because she didn't just heal, she took the house down to the studs and rebuilt it on her own terms.
That's the mission for this dive. We're going to move past the sensationalism. And yes, we have to talk about the kidnapping.
Of course.
Because that's the context, that's the crucible. But I really want to focus on the second act. We're looking at how a 14-year-old girl who was stripped of every ounce of agency a human being can lose managed to become this powerhouse activist.
And not just an activist.
No, a harpist, a mother, and frankly, a fierce critic of the very culture that raised her.
That last point is crucial, and I hope we spend some real time on it later.
Oh, we will.
This isn't just a survivor story where she advocates for, better safety laws. This is a story about a woman who took a sledgehammer to some very specific religious and cultural narratives around purity and victimhood.
Yeah.
She challenged her own tribe.
She absolutely did. So let's get into it. To understand the height of the recovery, we do have to understand the depth of the hole she was thrown into.
Yeah, you have to.
We have to go back to Salt Lake City, June 5th, 2002.
The night the world changed for the Smart family. And honestly, for a lot of American families, this was the case that changed how parents looked at their own homes.
Right. So Elizabeth is 14. She's in 8th grade. She's seemingly safe in her own bed.
In her own room.
And I think this specific detail, the bedroom, is why this case just went so nuclear in the media. This wasn't a kid walking home from the bus stop. This wasn't a wrong place, wrong time situation in a park.
No, it was an invasion. It shattered the concept of the sanctuary. The bedroom is supposed to be the one place where the world can't get to you. It's where you are most vulnerable, where you sleep.
Exactly.
And to have a stranger, Brian David Mitchell, come into that space at knife point while your parents are asleep down the hall, it taps into a primal fear. It's the boogeyman. Literalized.
And the sources are very clear and very blunt about what followed. She was taken by Mitchell and his wife, Wanda Barzee. They marched her up the mountain, and for the next 9 months, she was held captive.
It was a regime of absolute terror.
Yeah. I don't want to be gratuitous, but we need to be clear about the reality she was living in to understand the resilience required to survive it.
It wasn't just captivity in the sense of being locked in a room. It was active, daily, systematic abuse.
Every single day.
Rape, starvation, being tied up with cables between two trees, constant death threats. Mitchell used religion as a weapon, twisting scripture to justify the abuse, claiming he was a prophet and she was his new wife. He tried to rewrite her reality from the ground up.
It's horrific. But there's one detail about this Captivity 1 geographic fact that to this day, I find the most difficult to process.
I think I know what you're going to say.
I was looking at this on Google Maps before we started recording, just trying to wrap my head around it.
You talking about the proximity?
The proximity. She wasn't in a bunker in Mexico. She wasn't flown to Europe. She was found in Sandy, Utah.
Which is 18 miles from her house.
18 miles. That is a 20-minute drive. That's a coffee run. On a clear day, she could probably see the same peaks of the Wasatch Mountains that her parents were looking at from their front porch.
Just think about the psychology of that. When you're that close to home, hope isn't a comfort. It's a torture device.
Oh, wow.
You are existing in a parallel dimension. You are seeing the same world, hearing the same traffic, maybe even hearing the sirens of the police cars looking for you, but you can't touch it. It's right there. But it's a universal way.
And that leads to the question people always ask, right? The sort of the uninformed question. If she was only 18 miles away, why didn't she just run?
And that is the most misunderstood aspect of abduction. It speaks to the level of psychological control Mitchell had. He didn't need distance to keep her. He built a prison inside her mind.
That's a powerful way to put it.
He convinced her that if she tried to leave, he would kill her family. That was the constant threat. He convinced her that he had divine power. When you are 14 and you are being traumatized daily, your brain switches into survival mode. You do what you have to do to stay alive for one more hour.
It's conditioning.
It's classical conditioning, absolutely. It's a conditioned helplessness that is incredibly, incredibly hard to break. The physical chains were there, sure, but the mental chains were much, much stronger.
And that psychological prison is what makes the rescue, and then specifically the aftermath, so fascinating. She is found March 12th, 2003.
A day of celebration.
A huge one. And the way she was found is actually a huge part of the series. It wasn't the FBI kicking down a door because of a DNA match or, a brilliant piece of detective work.
It was the public. It was everyday people.
It was two couples walking down the street in Sandy, Utah. They saw three people in robes and veils, and they recognized the eyes.
Just the eyes.
They recognized Mitchell and Barzee from an episode of America's Most Wanted.
It was a massive win for the Amber Alert generation. It proved that if you saturate the media, if you make the public part of the search team, people will watch. The eyes of the community actually worked.
So she is rescued. She is alive. It's a miracle. The news cycles go crazy, but the rescue is where the script usually flips.
Wow.
In the standard narrative, the victim is supposed to fade away. They go to therapy, they hide, they try to forget. Elizabeth Smart did not do that.
Not even close.
No.
She paused. She took a breath, and then she went on the offensive.
So let's talk about the legal aftermath. Because getting rescued doesn't mean the ordeal is over. Not by a long shot.
No, in some ways it's just beginning. Now you have to face the people who did this to you. And looking at the timeline and the sources, this was not quick.
Not at all. It was agonizingly slow. You have two perpetrators, Wanda Barzee and Brian David Mitchell.
Okay, so let's start with Barzee. She eventually pled guilty in 2009.
2009, that's 6 years after the rescue.
6 years. Pled guilty to assisting in the kidnapping.
And what was the sentence?
15 years in federal prison.
Hmm?
But, and this is a big but, because she had already been in custody for 7 years, she got credit for time served.
So it felt mathematical cold.
Very. But Mitchell played the system.
Ah, the competency game.
Exactly. His defense team argued he was mentally unfit to stand trial. They claimed his religious delusions meant he couldn't understand the proceedings. This dragged on and on.
For years.
All the way until 2010. Imagine being Elizabeth, trying to restart your life, trying to be a teenager, a young adult, but having this open wound of a legal case just hanging over you for 7 years.
It's like you can't close the door.
The door is wide open. And in the middle of this legal limbo, Elizabeth makes a choice. She's a young adult now. She has escaped. She is trying to move on. But she decides to walk back into that courtroom.
I really want to pause on that image, because I don't think we give enough credit to how incredibly difficult that is.
It's monumental.
It's not just testifying. It is voluntarily confronting the source of your nightmares. She sat in a chair a few feet away from the man who raped her daily for 9 months.
And Mitchell was not a passive defendant. He was in the courtroom, often singing hymns or shouting, trying to disrupt the proceedings.
That's right. I remember reading that he was singing. Just the audacity.
And she had to sit there, maintain her composure, look him in the eye, and speak the truth. She transitioned from being the object of the crime to the author of the justice.
The author of the justice. I like that. She wasn't just a witness. She was the hammer.
She was. Her testimony was the nail in the coffin. It ensured he got 2 life sentences in federal prison. He will never, ever breathe free air again.
Thank goodness.
But that courtroom moment, to me, signals the beginning of her agency. She realized, I have a voice, and when I use it, powerful things happen.
And that leads us perfectly into the next phase of her evolution, the media. Because for a long time, Elizabeth wasn't telling her own story.
No. In the beginning, the narrative was completely external. It was happening to her, not from her.
Right. Immediately after the rescue, you had books coming out. Her uncle, Tom Smart, wrote a book called In Plain Sight. Her father, Ed Smart, wrote Bringing Elizabeth Home.
And there was a TV movie in 2003, wasn't there?
Yep. The Elizabeth Smart story.
Which was based on her father's book.
Exactly. She was the subject. She was the character in the script, not the writer. She was the topic of conversation.
Which is typical for a minor and typical for a victim of such a high-profile crime. The world consumes the story, and the victim is often just content. We consume their tragedy as entertainment.
But then something changes, and this is one of the things I found most interesting in the source material. The pivot.
2017, the 15th anniversary of the abduction.
A major anniversary, and Lifetime of all places airs a film.
And it's called I Am Elizabeth Smart.
Note the title, I Am.
So important.
Not the story of, not the kidnapping of, I Am.
It's a declaration.
It really is. And she didn't just sign off on the rights. She didn't just cash a check. She narrated it. She produced it. She was on set.
That is a critical difference.
Yeah.
She wasn't just being interviewed by a journalist who would then cut and paste her quotes into their own narrative. She was producing the reenactment of her own trauma from her perspective. She controlled the lens. She decided what was shown and how it was shown.
I read that she insisted on showing the grittiness of it. She didn't want the sanitized, the TV movie version of abduction. She wanted people to feel the cold, the hunger, the fear.
Of course. Because if you sanitize it, you minimize the survival. If you don't show how bad it was, people don't understand how strong she had to be to survive it. It was a reclamation of the truth.
And she didn't stop there. This is what's amazing. The sources list a whole string of production credits that followed. She basically started a franchise of helping other women tell their stories.
Really impressive. She produced Stolen by Their Father, which was the Elizabeth Meredith story.
Then The Girl Who Escaped, about Cara Robinson.
Abducted by My Teacher, the Elizabeth Thomas story.
The Girl Locked Upstairs, about Tanya Cuff.
And she also participated in the documentary Smart Justice, the Jamie Kloss case.
It's like she realized, okay, I have this platform because of what happened to me. It's a terrible platform, but it's here.
Right. What do I do with it?
I can use it to be a celebrity victim, or I can use it to hand the microphone to other people who are in this terrible club that no one wants to join.
She created a platform for survivor-led storytelling.
Mm.
We're so used to Hollywood-led exploitation of true crime. We love a Dateline mystery. We love a podcast that picks apart a cold case.
Guilty.
We all are. But Elizabeth Smart turned that model on its head. He said, no, we are going to tell you what it's actually like, and we are going to do it on our terms. It's almost like she is unionizing the victims. Nothing about us without us.
That is a powerful way to put it. It's reclaiming the narrative in the most literal sense. But she didn't just reclaim the narrative of the crime. She started attacking the cultural narratives that contribute to the trauma.
Oh, this is the big one.
This is where the deep dive gets really profound for me.
You're talking about the chewed gum.
The chewed gum. We have to talk about the chewed gum.
This is the heavy stuff. This is where she goes from being an advocate for safety to being a philosopher of self-worth.
So let's set the context. Elizabeth grew up in a very religious household.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Mm.
Very conservative.
And in that culture, and honestly, in many conservative Christian cultures, particularly in the 90s and early 2000s, there was a specific style of abstinence-only education. It focused heavily on purity.
The idea of being pure and clean for marriage.
And because teenagers don't respond well to abstract theological concepts, teachers would use metaphors, object lessons.
Things you can see and touch.
Exactly. And the metaphor Elizabeth remembers, the one that burrowed into her brain, is the chewed gum.
I've heard this one before. It's awful.
It's so visceral. The teacher would take a piece of gum, chew it up, spit it out, and hold it up to the class. And they would ask, who wants this?
And obviously the kids recoil. They say, gross, nobody wants that. Disgusting.
And the teacher says, exactly, this is what you are if you have sex before marriage. You are used. You are dirty. Nobody will want to re-chew a piece of gum.
It makes my stomach turn just hearing it again. It's a horrific metaphor because it implies permanent, irreversible ruin.
Yes, permanent.
It teaches that your value is purely physical, and once that seal is broken, your worth is gone. You can't unchew gum. There's no coming back from it.
Now take that metaphor and put it inside the head of a 14-year-old girl who has just been kidnapped.
This is the tragedy. This is the crux of it. Elizabeth is being raped daily by a maniac. She has absolutely no choice in the matter. It is an act of violence. But in the back of her mind, this metaphor is playing on a loop.
I have the quote here from her speech at Johns Hopkins University in 2013. She said, and I quote, "I thought, oh my gosh, I'm that chewed up piece of gum. Nobody re-chews a piece of gum. You no longer have worth.
Let's really sit with that for a second. Mitchell is hurting her physically. But this metaphor, this teaching from her own community, is attacking her soul. It's telling her that because of what he is doing to her, she has lost her value.
It aligns the victim's internal monologue with the abuser's actions.
It arms the abuser, does his work for him.
And she said it contributed to suicidal thoughts. She said, quote, "I felt like I wasn't even human anymore. Because logically, if you are trash, why bother surviving? Why fight to go home if you are just going to be a piece of garbage that brings shame to your family?"
That is the insidious danger of shame-based teaching. It almost killed her. It took away her will to fight because she thought there was nothing left to save. She believed she was ruined forever.
And the bravery it takes to say that publicly. She isn't just criticizing a textbook. She is criticizing a teaching that came from her own community, her own people, the people she loved.
Yeah.
She stood on a stage and told the world that the way she was raised, with the best of intentions, I'm sure,
Of course.
contributed to her trauma.
That takes a specific kind of courage. It's one thing to fight a kidnapper. It's another thing entirely to fight a dogma. But she did it with such nuance. She didn't attack the religion as a whole. She didn't leave her faith over it.
No, she's still active.
But she surgically removed this toxic idea and held it up to the light to show how dangerous it is. She did it to protect other kids.
Her core message then became about intrinsic worth.
Exactly. Dispelling the myth that girls lose value upon sexual contact.
Yeah.
Whether that contact is consensual or, in her case, violently forced. She wants to replace the gum metaphor with something else.
Like what's the counter metaphor?
A diamond. She has used the analogy that you can take a diamond, throw it in the mud, stomp on it, try to smash it, but you pick it up, wash it off, and it is still a diamond. Its value hasn't changed. It just got dirty.
That is so much better. It's about resilience, not ruin.
It's the truth. Your worth is inherent. It can't be taken from you.
And she connects this to her recovery philosophy. She famously gave advice to J.C. Dugard, another high-profile kidnapping survivor, basically saying that dwelling on the past is unproductive.
She seems very pragmatic in that way. She acknowledges the trauma, she deals with it, but she refuses to set up camp there. She keeps moving forward.
Which brings us to where she moved to, or rather, where she went. Because looking at her personal timeline, she didn't just sit around being an activist, she went out and lived.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the choices she made are surprising.
You're thinking of the mission.
I am 100% thinking of the mission. 2009, she has been rescued for a few years. She is a young adult. The world is watching her. And what does she do? She disappears again. But this time, on purpose.
He goes to Paris.
For the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
She put on a name tag that says Sister Smart and goes to knock on doors in France to talk about her faith.
I just love this. She leaves the spotlight, the constant scrutiny to go knock on doors where people are almost certainly going to slam them in her face.
It represents such a profound desire for normalcy.
Totally.
And for spiritual service that has nothing to do with being the kidnapped girl. In Paris, to the people she met on the street, she wasn't a headline. She was just an American missionary with an accent.
Well, mostly.
Mostly. I'm sure some people recognize her. But the context was different. She was there to serve, not to be scrutinized. It allowed her to rebuild her identity away from the glare of the U.S. media.
And get this, it was interrupted only by that trial testimony we mentioned earlier.
She had to pause her mission for that.
She flew back from Paris, testified, stared down Mitchell in court, put him away for life, and then flew right back to France to finish her mission.
Talk about compartmentalization. That is impressive focus. I'm going to take a break from spreading the gospel to go put a bad guy in jail, then I'll be right back.
Just incredible. And while she was on this mission, she met someone.
A Scotsman.
Matthew Gilmore.
A classic mission romance, perhaps?
The source says they met in the Paris mission, and then in 2012, they got married in Hawaii.
A private ceremony. Smart move. Far away from the cameras.
And now they have 3 children and live in Wasatch County, Utah.
There is something very happily ever after about that specific trajectory. She achieved the domestic life that her captors tried to steal from her.
That's a great point.
Mitchell tried to make her his wife in a twisted, horrific fantasy. But she rejected that, escaped, and built a real marriage, a real family, on her own terms.
It's the ultimate revenge. Living well, being happy.
Precisely. It's proof that he didn't break her capacity to love or trust.
But she's not just a mom and an activist. She's also a musician. And I completely forgot about this until I read the profile.
Yes. The harp.
She studied harp performance at Brigham Young University.
And the harp is not an easy instrument. It requires incredible discipline, dexterity, and patience. It's not something you just pick up.
And she has played on national television. It's not just a hobby.
It's another reminder that she had an identity and skills independent of her trauma. She was a musician before she was a victim, and she remained a musician afterwards. It's a part of her soul that they couldn't touch.
And speaking of unexpected appearances, we have to talk about 2021.
Oh, I know exactly where you're going. The Moth.
The Masked Dancer.
I remember seeing this and just being stunned in the best way.
For those who don't know the show, celebrities dress up in these elaborate costumes, masks, full body suits, and they dance. And the judges have to guess who they are.
And Elizabeth Smart came out dressed as a moth.
A fuzzy pastel moth with wings.
And she danced. She danced to pop music on a network TV show.
Why do you think she did that? It seems so far outside the serious activist box. It seems almost silly.
I think the silliness is the point. The public wants her to be the saintly victim. We want her somber, serious, talking about trauma in a soft voice. By putting on a moth costume and dancing, she is saying, I am allowed to have fun. I am allowed to be ridiculous. I am not your tragedy.
It's the ultimate rejection of the victim label. Victims don't dance in moth suits on Fox.
No, they don't. Survivors who are thriving do. And honestly, good for her. It was joyful.
Absolutely. But her life hasn't been a fairy tale since the rescue. Life is messy, and she has had to navigate some very public challenges recently.
Because life doesn't stop throwing curveballs just because you've already had your share.
In 2019, there was a major shift in her family dynamics.
Her father, Ed Smart.
He was a huge public figure during the search. He was a face of the grieving father. He was everywhere.
In 2019, he came out as gay and announced he was leaving the LDS Church,
which led to the divorce of her parents after decades of marriage.
That is a massive upheaval for any family, especially a prominent religious family in Utah. That is an earthquake.
And the tabloids were ready to feast. This is the kind of story they love. The Smart family crumbles.
And how did Elizabeth respond?
With absolute grace. She issued a public statement of support for both parents.
She just said, I love my parents. Simple as that.
It demonstrates her capacity for empathy. She navigated a very complex, very public family change without adding to the drama. She protected her relationships. She didn't let the media tear them apart.
And then also in 2019, there was another incident, one that really, it brings us back to the beginning in a way, the airplane incident.
This story really struck a chord with me because it shows how trauma stays with you, but also how your response to it changes.
Okay, lay it out.
She was on a Delta flight, traveling home to Utah. She fell asleep.
Which you're supposed to be able to do on a plane.
Right, and she woke up to find the male passenger next to her rubbing her inner thigh.
Ugh. It makes my skin crawl.
It is a violation.
Yeah.
Pure and simple. You are trapped in a metal tube. You are vulnerable. You are asleep.
Now, for someone with her history, waking up to a stranger touching you, that could be a trigger that sends you spiraling. That is a flashback waiting to happen.
And I'm sure the fear was there. I'm sure the adrenaline spiked. But look at the reaction. She didn't freeze. She didn't cower. She didn't pretend it didn't happen.
To report it.
She called it out. She told the flight attendants. She made sure it was documented.
Good for her.
And she didn't stop there. It wasn't just a minor annoyance to her. It became fuel.
She started Smart Defense,
a self-defense program for women and girls.
So she took a moment of violation on an airplane and turned it into a structured program to help other women protect their bodily autonomy.
It connects right back to the beginning. Even 17 years after her rescue, she is still fighting for the right to be safe in her own body. But now she's fighting with tools, with laws, and with education.
She is constantly transmuting the bad stuff into something useful. That is the definition of alchemy. You try to hurt me, fine. I will turn that hurt into a shield for someone else.
But she is also very careful about how she is used. We talked about agency, and this is a nuanced point, but I think it's important.
Yes, this is key.
There was a moment where politicians tried to use her name for a law.
The so-called Elizabeth Smart Law.
It was a proposal in Utah to require all computers and phones sold in the state to have a mandatory pornography filter.
A very specific politically charged agenda. And the politicians behind it slapped her name on the bill, probably without even asking her.
They just assumed, I suppose, that she would be on board because she is an advocate against sexual exploitation.
They assumed she was a mascot. They assumed they owned her brand.
Then what happened?
She had her lawyer send a cease and desist letter.
Just stop using my name.
She denied involvement. She shut it down.
That is fascinating, because on the surface, you might think she would support something like that.
But it reinforces her agency. She determines how her name is used. She determines what causes she supports. She refuses to be a passive figurehead for someone else's political agenda. Just because she's an advocate against exploitation doesn't mean she signs a blank check for every moral law politicians come up with.
She is the CEO of Elizabeth Smart, Inc., and she runs a tight ship.
She really does. She knows the power of her name, and she spends it very, very carefully.
So, as we wrap up, let's try to synthesize all of this. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. We've looked at the timeline. From a 14-year-old girl taken from her bedroom, 18 miles from home, existing in a nightmare.
To a survivor facing her captor in court, staring him down while he sang hymns.
To a fierce critic of shame-based education who stood up to her own culture and said, "I am not chewed gum."
To a harpist, a mother, a filmmaker, a producer.
And a woman who dances in a moth costume on national television just for the fun of it.
It is an incredible evolution. It's one of the most remarkable stories of the last 25 years.
The title of her 2018 book is Where There's Hope. And I think her life is the physical manifestation of that title.
She proves that trauma is a chapter, not the whole book.
Exactly. The book continues, and she is the one writing it.
That's the key. She picked up the pen, she stopped letting her dad write it, she stopped letting the media write it, and she certainly stopped letting Brian David Mitchell write it.
And she hasn't put the pen down since.
Before we go, I want to leave our listener with a thought, a little provocation to carry with you.
Okay, for it.
Elizabeth Smart challenged the teachings of her own upbringing, that chewed gum analogy, because she realized it was destroying her sense of self-worth. She had to reject a truth she was raised with to save herself.
That's a powerful realization. Sometimes the things we are taught, the things we just accept, are the very things holding us back.
So my question to you is this. What truths or metaphors have you accepted that might actually be limiting your own resilience? What are the chewed gum analogies in your own life about your career, your relationships, your worth that you need to spit out?
That is a question worth answering.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you in the next deep dive.